So we've been hosting this predictions panel for the last 7 to 8 years, and the objective of this panel has always been to get people from the industry, uh, from India as well as outside India, to give their perspectives on how the industry is shaping. The outcome should be young developers, business guys, entrepreneurs who are in the audience. They should get an outside in view as well as opportunities, ideas of opportunities in the market, and understand the trends that are likely to affect next year. Do not ask me how many predictions have come true the past 7 to 8 years. I have no video proof of that. So, moving on, I will allow the panel to introduce. First, let me just give my introduction. I've been in the industry for the last 13 years, multiple roles: startup, entrepreneur, operator, investor, and that's pretty much it. Guys, please start off with your introductions.
I am very honored to be actually part of this panel. And Anuj rightly said, I was asking my co-founder who was on this panel last year, and I said, so how many of your predictions actually came true? And he started laughing and he said, well, you know what happened in last 1 year, right? Everything is so unpredictable, and that's the fun of it. To see how you navigate through your optimism to get around. I'm Soumya. I'm co-founder of Winzo Games. We are India's largest social interactive entertainment platform, present in 12 languages with 175 million users across different platforms. Thank you.
Hi, I'm also very, very happy to be here at this 15th annual event already. So I'm very impressed with everything I've seen so far. Sorry I haven't been before. My name is Kadre Harma. So I've been in the industry for over 10 years, mainly as an investor. So I have built ecosystems in multiple countries, in Europe, in Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia, and then most recently 2 years in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. So happy to give my perspective globally, and currently also working at CISO Ventures, so looking at early stage investments.
My name is Sean. I'm working for Krafton India as a CEO of the company. It's my second time in IGDC. Happy to be back.
I'm Jeff Strain. I'm honored to be at my first IGDC. I'm here with my new company, Pertanium Media, and our colleagues over here. Thank you. We have a cheering squad. And we are here representing a new studio that we're starting in India by the name of Dewan Entertainment. I had a note from my CFO this morning that my prediction should be that the game industry is going to continue to grow in 2024. So that's going to be my contribution to this panel. I was a co-founder of ArenaNet way back in the day, did all the Guild Wars games, and then co-founder of Undead Labs. And now we are here starting a new studio in India. So honored to be here. Thank you.
Hi guys, Justin Swart here from Bitcraft Ventures. Apologies if my voice is a bit hoarse. I've been speaking to such incredible people at this conference, and incredibly smart people, that I'm sort of starting to lose my voice. But it's been a real pleasure to just understand this landscape a bit better. Bitcraft is a pure play gaming fund. We invest in everything in the video gaming industry and stuff adjacent to it, which we can chat about later. We have 5 funds with $800 million odd under management, 130 odd portfolio companies, some of which are in India, as well as some great partners and LPs that we have here on the stage as well. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for the introduction. I think I'll start with you, Soumya, because we'll just recap maybe 2023, and you made a very good point. It's been pretty unpredictable for the industry, right? On the one hand, and I'll get to Sean, is India's favorite game is back, but we saw some regulatory, challenges, or maybe we can call it clarity on the skill gaming sector. So maybe Soumya, how do you see the 2023 as a year for the Indian gaming industry? And then I'll probably just come to Sean on that one.
Yeah, that's like the elephant in the room, right, right there. So, of course, I think regulations are good because they bring in a certain amount of predictability, especially as the entire sector is aspirationally looking for a lot of FDI coming into the country. Some of the larger players in the ecosystem are actually wanting to IPO. A stable, predictable, policy environment is just the most critical aspect for both. And over the years, there had been a certain push and pull. While, very technically there may have been clarity, but there's been a lot of push and pull between what is the interpretation of the law. And hence, it's very, very, very good that while we're going through a discomforting period, which every single time when there is clarity coming in, every player, every industry goes through, I personally feel, and as a company, as Winzo, we feel that it will bring in a lot of stability and guardrails for the ecosystem, which will be eventually very good. Of course, for example, the entire ecosystem, including skill gaming, outside skill gaming, gaming in general, was identified as the third intermediary under the intermediary guidelines, which is very good for the ecosystem. In terms of taxation, I think there's a clarity that will emerge out of this and stability that will emerge out of it, which is great for the ecosystem. So we definitely feel that businesses are going through a phase where they may have to quickly evolve and adopt around the external environment, which of course most startups are doing all the time. But in the long run, 4 years from now, it will all stabilize for an eventually a very, very good ecosystem that can create decacons, that can, be the boilerplate on which a lot of unicorns and companies can actually IPO. It will attract a lot of international capital into the country, which I think is holistically single most important growth propeller.
Understood. And just I'll come to Sean. You next. Is 2023 is when India's favorite game is back officially in operation. So good year that way, or in terms of 2023 summary, how does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, before the game is back, it was bad.
I know.
Yeah, after the game is back, yeah, it's definitely a good month. So overall net and net, it's like becoming a zero. I mean, mathematically, but yeah, of course, it's a good year
Sure.
for us, and we also decided to launch more games for Indian markets. We've done a couple of new game launch, which obviously not as big as BGMI, but we will continue to do the same thing for the next year. But at the same time, as a gaming, one of the players in the gaming industry, things become much better when there are great games, which can be enjoyed like large number of people. I think 2023, at least for the Indian market, we haven't seen many exciting games, to be honest. So that's a little depressing. Hope we can see more next year.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. So I want an outside investor perspective, say from Bitcraft. When you see the India market with an eye of changes happening every almost 6 months. There's obviously volatility in the market. It's a young industry. There is regulatory turbulence that happen in most of the industries, right? So how do you see from an investor perspective? Is there opportunities for value creation for investors as a summary of 2023, or do you think it's just too scary to invest?
That's an interesting question. Look, I think we chatted about this before we got on stage. Is the beauty of where I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa, is I've kind of seen the hardships of what it takes to build in an emerging market. Well, sorry, invest into studios and startups building into emerging market and see the trials and tribulations that those startups have gone through. And the reality is that, yes, it is scary. Yes, there are sort of regulatory overreach at times. I don't know if this is the case in India. I don't have enough information, but we've seen similar things happen in Nigeria with one of our portfolio companies, where Nigeria went also through a demonetization of the Naira. I think India went through kind of similar issues with building UPI. The Naira also depegged from the USD, and suddenly you have dollar-based investments halving overnight, which is a bit tough as an investor, and you can probably see all the gray hair in my beard, even though I'm in my early 30s. It makes it quite difficult. But what it teaches you is that building great businesses takes time, a lot of time in emerging markets, longer than sometimes deployment or life cycle periods of a venture fund. And it takes a lot of patience and just realizing that there are going to be a hell of a lot of ups and downs in this process. So in the Indian market, I haven't been here that long, but studied it from afar and learning from and listening to great people such as yourselves and other investors here and some of our portfolio companies. There does seem to be a hell of a lot of interesting things happening here. I mean, I don't need to preach to the choir here about all of the kind of great ingredients from a macro perspective that make investing a lot easier when you have tailwinds like a frictionless payment system and sort of much cheaper data, things you don't have in Africa, to be honest. You have a renewed sense of optimism, maybe not renewed is the wrong word, but just a sense of optimism from the youth, deciding to forgo going to US colleges and deciding to stay in India to build great businesses. There's real great base to build something interesting here. From the gaming perspective, you have a lot of talent coming out of larger studios that have set up shop here, taking those skills and wanting to build their own businesses. Real interesting things happening in the casual space that we've seen. There's this kind of move that mimics the rest of the world, where there's a focus on building more kind of core casual, hybrid casual games, and sort of forgoing those hyper casual, the difficulties of building in hyper casual, at least monetizing it. There's interesting shooter games being built here, sort of being, and while it hasn't come to the fore yet, which I agree with, there's interesting things that are percolating. Yeah. And so, that with an interesting talent base, I think there's some good stuff happening here.
Awesome. Jeff, with you from a global perspective, I think globally in 2023, I have heard the most layoffs happening in studios globally, right? In studios shutting down, consolidation in the industry. I've never seen such consolidation happen in last 20 years of gaming, right? So what's your take on 2023? What's the trends in the console, PC world and overall studio environments globally?
Yeah, I caught about 80% of that. There's an echo here, so I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. You were talking about the studios that are shutting down.
Yeah,
There's
globally,
a lot of consolidation in the industry.
2020.
What is the impact on that on 2024? Right. So there is a lot of consolidation going on, and a lot of that is a manifestation of the investment industry that we saw emerge around 2020, 2021, in the early parts of the pandemic, when the overall global industry was really making a lot of revenue and everybody thought it was going to keep going, right? And there was a lot of investment capital that came into the ecosystem. And what wound up happening is that a lot of small studios, people were awash with capital. It was very easy, if you had any experience in the industry at all, to kind of go out and get a $2 million seed investment with a couple of your friends who had maybe a couple of years at a big studio, right, and go set up shop. And as you were just saying, the game industry is not for people with short attention spans. It is not for people who are not in it for the long haul. And one of the things that we're seeing now is that some of these teams that were getting this easy capital and going out there and starting, they may have had great development experience. They may have been a senior producer or a senior technologist and had great experience being part of a team that had a successful game, but that is a very different skill set than building a company from scratch, building a new IP from scratch, taking it all the way through development and all the challenges that come up with that and bringing it to market. And so a lot of what you're saying is consolidation, I think, is driven by some of those studios are no longer able to get, Series B. They're not going to bring games to market, and they're closing up, and people are going back into some of the big publishers. So there's a real opportunity, though, for studios that are built around that notion of taking something from nothing and bringing it all the way through into live service. And when we look at our capital partners here, I think they are increasingly looking for that skill set as well, right? It's not enough to have been a programmer on League of Legends for 2 years, right? Now what we're looking for is people who have had the experience, even if not in an entrepreneurial way, people who have been part of projects where they were there from the beginning and understand what it means to take it all the way through, right? So that's really I think the opportunity now. There is a lot of space that's been created. And in particular, we use this word mid-core, and I think that's where a lot of the space has been created, right? There's a lot of indie studios making really interesting creative things that artistically are utterly fascinating. There's the big mega studios with 100, 200, $300 million quadruple A budgets that are doing big mature IP. But that mid-core market is really what is underserved right now. And I think that certainly that's the case in the Western market. And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities here in the Indian market too. Is to build unique, creative IP around a mid-core development process and find that audience. That's where the big entrepreneurial opportunity is here. So I was a little bit all over the map there, but I think that's where 2024 is really going to shine.
Awesome. Thanks. Kadri, coming to you, I feel out of all the 2023 doom and gloom, the biggest bright spot in gaming for me is Saudi, and you had front row seats in the market. So the intent of the leadership and the capital available is such a unique thing that we see. How do you summarize your version of 2023 in emerging markets and Saudi especially?
So I think that having spent the last 2 years building the ecosystem in Saudi Arabia, but also looking at the other countries in the same region, I think it's very unique how we have this whole region having a governmental push that has never been so strong, and not just from one government, but actually from multiple, and almost in a competitive way, like who is going to get the market. So this is I would also say, let's look at everything as an opportunity. So what is the opportunity here for people who already are in the industry? And definitely there is like a lot of packages around relocation and a lot of support and incentives, and everything is being offered, which is good for, let's say, setting up the development there. But I think another thing that has really opened up is I think everybody's eyes are open now in terms of how big the market actually is, how young the market actually is, how well the market is actually monetizing. So all of these numbers statistically are higher than any other currently, let's say, highly monetized region. So I think this is something definitely that we should look at and continue looking at, because as soon as, let's say, the local talent also catches up, like what I see right now in India versus, let's say, the Middle East, both have huge populations, but in India, the talent is way more skilled. So you have had the history of education around this. You have had a history of having the game sector active here. So Middle East hasn't had that. So they are trying to speed this up, but you can only do so much in terms of when you're upgrading talent. So I think this is the opportunity for India as well, to see that you have all the talent that might be necessary also over there, but the talent here is skilled, and all of these angles are possible to capitalize on.
Absolutely firm believer in that. I've been telling every developer to look at Middle East expansion as a way of growing their revenues. Only one or two have listened so far, and they're doing great. So yeah, so that's a validation, definitely. Now, thanks for that, guys. So I'll just talk about maybe some of the things around 2024, and there's some trends that are bound to continue and increase. One of the things, because we have in India a lot of young studios that want to launch new games, and that's the audience I believe that we are dealing with, and their platform of choice is mobile, right? And I'll start with an investor perspective first. Is building a mobile game today in 2024 red ocean, blue ocean? Like, would you fund a mobile gaming studio?
Interesting. It depends on, you're not going to like the answer, but it depends. And it depends.
I want you to tell the truth so that people know what it is. That's the whole point of this.
So it depends on the region, of course. India, I believe, is sort of 90, 95, 98% mobile, very similar to Africa. So I think, of course, it would make sense to build a mobile game studio there. We've seen some interesting trends happening with studios building or enabling at a later stage cross-platform play as a way to do various things: increase ARPUs, lower your CPIs, whatever it may be, just increase your accessible user base. And a lot of the successful companies have started with a mobile-first approach and then go to console and PC later, which I think that's quite interesting. And that trend, I think, may continue, maybe not 2024, but at least in the future. Again, we're VCs with long-term horizons, so if I try and make one-year predictions, I don't know if I'd be here. I'd probably be sponsoring the event or something. But those kind of trends, I think, there's some data points that we saw that I think are quite interesting in developed markets. You're actually seeing share of gaming time, of revenue increasing in mobile and decreasing in console, actually. And it speaks to perhaps users and gamers are not playing as much on console and PC, and moving towards the accessibility of being able to play Free Fire on your phone while you're on the train or sort of sitting down at other places. So I think that's pretty interesting. There's clips we've seen of the iPhone 15 being used as a console. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's interesting from sort of an African perspective, where you typically have leapfrogging of technologies, where your iPhone may become your console at a later stage, and so a mobile-first studio makes a hell of a lot of sense then. Now, of course, there's risks and issues that we've seen with the ghost of IDFA, which I'm sure we will chat about at a later stage. It's not really my forte to sort of speak about UA budgets, but I know that it's had a big impact on mobile revenues, IAPs, and ARPUs, and just made it incredibly difficult. And we've seen studios look at ways to combat that by diversifying their user acquisition channels, looking at newer channels, things like TikTok, which I'd love to hear from you guys if you've used that and seen any success. It's been interesting for game discovery. There's interesting stats about the kind of TikTok gaming funnel, about people who are on TikTok actually have higher gaming spend. They have a higher propensity to play games. Like all of these interesting stats that, take it with a pinch of salt, come from the TikTok annual report. But I'd be interested to see if that's been an interesting user acquisition channel. So
we don't know TikTok here. I don't think anyone knows that.
yeah, generally.
Yeah. No, that's just a thing because TikTok got banned in India in 2020. So that's why the people would know it as a UA channel for global markets, but not for the local market.
Yeah, apologies.
Yeah. So I think I'll come to that because you raised an important point on IDFA and would love anyone to take on it. Like from a global perspective, that's been troubling a lot of publishers now, whether it is the Politicas of the world, etc. Right? Everyone is sort of suffering because of the CPIs are increasing, the effective ROI is decreasing because of the IDFA issue, and things are not looking that great from a mobile user acquisition perspective. Anyone of you can take it, whoever is that 2024 will publishers innovate to find a way around it, or will this curse of mobile user acquisition continue for guys?
I can start.
Sure.
So I think actually I had some very interesting numbers that I read yesterday about the opt-in percentages. So when you're looking at Europe, it's around 30, but when you're looking at Middle East, it's just below 50, and in India, it's above 50 as well as in Africa. So I think that in this case, like with all of these things happening, I think what games industry has always shown is that it's possible to innovate around everything. I feel that I've also done investment in tech, and I always feel that the game studios are like more agile, more creative, they find more ways to do things. So in this case, like as well, I think that that of course we will find a way. We will do more influencer marketing. We will do other kind of like, innovative ways around it, or we will look for markets where the opt-in rates are higher, or like all of these options I think are still on table. So I don't see this getting easier in a sense of in a regulatory way. Rather, I think privacy is going to be turned on more and more from different angles. But I'm sure that there are ways around it, and it will just allow us to do things better going forward.
Maybe I'd like to add here, because we have built a business with 175 million registered users today, completely off Play Store. And I totally second with your point that you have made that the online gaming or the gaming industry in general is extremely creative with problem solving, and I feel that the biggest part of this problem is education on the maths, how it stack up. So the problem of looking at LTV by CAC and knowing the guardrails around it. Our experience had been that a lot of young entrepreneurs, while things are obvious, may not really understand the science of distribution. And the moment they do understand it, they find beautiful solutions outside just the very well understood standard ways of distribution. And I think this is just one of those problems that when people understand how to solve around with the guardrails of how the business would eventually stack up, it's just absolutely possible, and there will be a new form of distribution model that will emerge out of it, which would be very, very sustainable and profitable.
I agree, Soumya. I think the skill-based industry in India, RMG specifically, had to circumvent a lot of app user tracking and innovated on different level of attribution, of etc., which is taught a lot of new hacks to figure out measuring of ROI. The challenge that I was also saying is for young, and this is with the first question that I was coming, is building a game and publishing a game, and Sean, I'll get your view on this now. Is it, with all the IDFA challenge, is publishing the right way, going with the publisher the right way, or is it like self-publishing a better option in 2024?
I believe for slightly less experienced team or less, small size team, I believe if you have confidence in your content, the core gameplay, I think you should talk to publisher first, rather than before deciding whether to publish or whether to work with a publisher or self-publish. Because I think you will learn a lot from this conversation. Then you still have choice to do it or not. In India, to be maybe little arrogant, it might sound little arrogant, but I don't think that India has a good number of publishers. I think India needs more publishers like us, and then it actually creates very good ecosystem by working together. And publishers generally have more intelligence than one small developer. So that's, I think.
Right. Cool. Thanks. Jeff, from a perspective of, Gen AI, sort of generative AI disrupting the supply chain of building sorry, generative AI disrupting the supply chain of building games. In 2024, do you think that is going to have an impact on roles of people like concept artist or level designer for casual games more, or will it affect mid-core and hardcore games as well for 2024 going forward?
I'm so sorry. I'm still trying to get in an echo here, and I just want to make sure I understand your question. Ask it. Could you repeat it?
So generative AI is disrupting the supply chain of gaming, is what we have been hearing all around. Do you think it will impact casual games only, and or will it impact mid-core games? What are the roles that will get impacted by this change?
Generative AI. I'm so sorry. That was the word I was missing. Was
Yeah,
generative
my
AI.
Indian accent is
Yeah,
kicking in.
that's so. Right now, what we're finding is that generative AI is having the greatest impact on the development process itself. Creating textures, creating shaders and materials, doing unwrapping, and taking a rough polygonal model and turning it into a highly detailed polygonal model from a high specification photo. Right? There's all kinds of efficiencies in the development chain that we're finding. Certainly, when you want to start putting voice work into your game, you can stand it up. We used to all sit around, 5 years ago and have developers just record lines, and now you can instrument your entire game with AI very quickly. I do think that there's still a lot of, I don't want to say pie in the sky, but there's a lot of lofty ambition about what AI is going to do in the game itself, that we're going to have these completely human-like NPCs running around and having completely natural conversations with people. And the problem is that when you're creating a game and selling it in a marketplace, 98% is not good enough, right? If conversation is 98% correct and 2% of the time it goes completely off the rails and says something offensive or something silly, it completely breaks the immersion into the world. And so, right now, for 2024, I don't think that anybody would bank their livelihood on AI agents in their game. Where it's the most interesting, though, is rapid runtime content generation. So right now we use it heavily in the tool chain, but being able to put tools in the hands of your players to rapidly create content within the context of your game is something that's super interesting that we are very much pursuing. I don't think it's going to disrupt the supply chain. This is an industry based on art, and art is still profoundly a human endeavor, not art compositing, which is when you talk about AI-generated art, you're taking things that humans have made and compositing it in different ways, right? But the actual generative, creative process of creating new experiences for people is something that's still very much in the hands of humans. What we view is AI as increasingly facilitating that, making it easier, making it more efficient, allowing developers to focus on the things that really matter. And then at the runtime, putting tools in the hands of players to be able to use the affordances of the game to manipulate the content and create interesting new experiences within the game. But right now, I don't think that we're at a point where for 2024, I would feel like it was threatening my job if I were a game developer. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Since we have like 6 minutes left, I will sort of skip a few things and delve into the last one, I think, which is important for this. And I'll start with you, Soumya. What are you investing? If you were to put your personal check in 2024, what's one thing that you are investing in, and what's one thing you are not investing in?
Definitely investing in talented entrepreneurs. So talent is one thing that we definitely back and take decisions on.
Pre-revenue gaming studios is what you're investing in. Is that my understanding?
Absolutely, 100%. and everything gaming, everything technology that will enable gaming. We are definitely investing in. We, of course, have a very strong thesis that talented people, evolve and adopt around emerging trends and markets. And businesses will have to evolve accordingly. And hence, we always look at ideas and teams, most importantly, behind those ideas. What we are not investing in, or maybe staying on the line currently, is maybe creator economy is one thing that we have not built a very strong thesis on for the coming year, and businesses around that, because we do feel that there's a lot that has been done already in that space.
Perfect. Thanks, Soumya. Kadri, what are you investing and not investing?
I think it's a very tricky question because honestly, I've never invested based on trends. So my answer is quite similar. Like the main investments that we are making are still pre-seed. And if you're thinking about pre-seed, the product that you see in the pitch deck is never the product that actually hits the market. You need to be able to be flexible. You need to have a number of shots on goal, and you need to be able to learn in the process. So I think what we are investing in are innovative, creative, curious founders who are also able to execute. Because I think with everything that we have discussed here, like things like D1 and D7 and all these numbers, it's good to have and all of that, but what are they going to be in a month with all these changes happening, and like what is happening, on the market at the same time? So at the end of the day, you're looking at people, and you are looking at what is the impact that they had in their previous position. So not really like, I was this or that, but like Jeff said before, like have you actually taken something to the final, and all of these things. So I think it's still, I know it's the same answer that every investor is always giving you, but it's always about founders. And what I would not invest in is somebody who is not able to learn, because I think this is something that we really need. We need people to be able to be curious and humble and learn and do something differently, and that's how the industry grows. So sorry for the boring answer.
It's a very refined answer, actually, with years of experience. Sean.
Yeah, I think all the good answers, wise answers came already. So I will be a little shallow. I will invest in like generative AI-based application or tools that creates great contents. That's where I'm going to invest in. Where I'm not going to invest in is maybe there could be some exception, but I will not invest in any company who is trying to create a big platform without clear path for the revenue. For now, at least.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a product guy. I'm in this industry because I love games. I love making games. I love being around people who love games. And so for me, at a very personal level, it's about what's new and exciting. And I don't mean, I'm like you, I don't invest in trends, right? AI is a tool. It's not something that would be, hey, I'm going to invest in AI. I would want to know how that is being used to create a new experience, something joyful, something unique under the sun, right? And when I'm looking at studios and teams and pitches and products, what I want to know is, like, what's new about this? I know comparables give us a sense of security, but I just don't want to play another MOBA, and I just don't want to play another Battle Royale game. Those have been done beautifully, right? People own that, right? What I love the most is when somebody comes to me and says, here's something new, and here's why people want it, right? Here is what is feeding a hunger and not creating an appetite, right? This is why the world is ready for this new experience and this new thing, and I'm super excited to share it with you. That's what gets me going, yeah.
Lars, I'll try speed run some of our theses, but we look at the gaming market through three very, very broad lenses. Number one is gameplay first. We're gamers by heart. We really love the gaming space. We play games together as a firm. And so the question we always ask is, why does this game need to exist? Particularly if we're looking at studios, like what is it about the gaming industry? Where are we in whatever genre, whatever cycle we are on? Why does this game need to exist right now? What are players missing? What are the blue oceans in things like mid-core that are missing of what people are trying to build? So we're trying to invest in new genres, and we're trying to hunt new genres. There's this move away from modding with the advent of free-to-play that's sort of pushed away the development of new game mechanics. But you see interesting things in UEFN and user-generated content type Roblox and the like, building also new game mechanics. So there's interesting stuff happening there. The second lens is new business models. So for example, we invest in publishers, but one of our portfolio companies also does payments processing in Africa, which adds a new element to the kind of thing that they're trying to build. But new business models tend to be downstream of distribution, right? We started with sort of big box retailers and $60 price tags for games. We moved to the marginal cost of distribution being effectively zero, and that leading to free to play as a business model. So we look for what is the new business model of gaming going to be. We don't know. We're still investigating. There's interesting things happening around the NFTs and digital collectibles, where I spend a lot of my time. Just simply giving out that stuff for free has interesting impacts on unit economics, on retention rates, and there's some sort of interesting stuff percolating in that sphere. And then lastly is technology. We've spoken about crypto. I know it's not as developed in the Indian market, but it's something that we spend a lot of our time on. We've spoken about tooling around generative AI, sort of as a new paradigm and new technology. And yeah, so it's those three sort of lenses that we spend a lot of our time. What we're not investing in is stuff like hyper casual. We move to where the puck is going. We invest where the puck is going. And if you look at what the youth are playing and sort of younger generations, it's really focused on mid-core, hardcore games. And so we're going to focus our investments on where that puck is going and what people are going to play.
Understood. Thanks, guys. I actually did not get one answer, so I'm going to just run through and just a yes or a no from you guys. I don't want explanations. Should game developers be building games for local audience, specifically local content, or should they be making for global? So just answer. I know there's a lot of perspective, talent, skill, etc. But in 2024, should game developers be targeting their local market or more global market? Start with you.
That is a loaded question because there's a lot of.
I know there's a lot of context, but just one word. Yeah,
just one word.
Yeah, for the Indian audience here, should they be talking about local or global?
So yes or no?
Yeah, global,
I don't
local
know.
or global? Local or global?
Yes, you should.
Local. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not going to do yes or no. But I will say it's not about local versus global. It's about what you know versus, what you don't know, right? Game developers should make what they're passionate about and what they know and build from there. And if you're an Indian developer, my God, so much story,
Exactly.
history, culture, build to that. Absolutely.
I agree. Sean.
Yes.
Local. Yes. Nice. You plugged in a publishing play. Anyways. Yeah.
I would say global, but if you think about it, like how many Indians are actually living outside of India, like how many Middle Eastern people are living all over the world. So local does not mean physical in a country, but again, the audience that you know.
Perfect. Soumya.
I'd just say, I don't know local or global, but I'll say India, let's stream global. We can just achieve it.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. We're open for questions now.
What do you think, Ganesh? Yes or no?
I think India is starved.
No, only yes or no.
Yeah. No, I didn't get a chance to speak, so I at least get a minute. I think local is the way to. I truly believe that we are very culturally rich. We have not told our stories to not just Indian audience, but to global audiences. I think we deserve a platform, and that's where what I believe.
By the way, Ludo and Snake and Ladder is one of our top games in Brazil.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, hi, sir. Sir, there are more than thousands of game developers here who have new ideas. So, and more of them, yeah. So, a lot of them are like inspiring game developers, but their ideas are like something that have already been published or something like that. But for them, it is new. And then when they create it and they get to know it's a big, like a no-no thing, they get low and everything. So what is that one statement that you can say to all these people who are trying to create something new but then are like pushed down by the market?
So I'm sorry. So you're saying the ideas are already published?
No. For example, if I create something new, for me it is really new, and I did everything. But then I find out that that particular game, like that, has
Okay.
already been published by a big studio or whatever. Now I am feeling really low, for example. So what? How will you guide me to in that scenario? Like, what will you say?
So basically, an idea has been taken away by. So during the development process, you find out as a developer that your idea has already been published. How do you sort of get out of that? And you, Jeff, you maybe you.
I can quickly give like an investor perspective after you, but very shortly, once you're looking for funding, just market research is a key component of that. It goes back to the question I keep asking about why does this game need to exist in this market and where we are at this moment. And so, you know, having done some research and understanding where we are in the market, what genre you're tackling is an important part of that process. So it's a long way of saying just to do research beforehand. But sorry, Carol.
Yeah, and I would also just say that ideas are cheap, right? Everybody in this room has 100 great ideas they could share with us right now. It's the ability to execute that matters. And execute is not binary. It's not Boolean, right? I go back to my early days and, we were working on the original Warcraft and Command and Conquer came out. That's way earlier than a lot of you folks ever remember. But at the dawn of the RTS genre, right, like there was all this competition. We all knew everybody was making RTSs. We just thought we could do better. And that can be dangerous if you're not really confident in your ability to execute well. But it can also be, especially if it's a popular genre, if you can look at something and say, yeah, they did that, but we can do it a whole lot better and articulate why. Here are the 5 ways that we know we can be better. Here are the 5 ways that we know that they didn't address the market and we can. Then that's a viable strategy too. So it's just really a question of, not every game has to be completely unique. Can you do it better?
Perfect. I think we are out of time. One last question, maybe.
Hello, sir. I have a question for Sean from Krafton. Hi.
We all have, but
Yes. Yes. So when PUBG got initially released for PC, we didn't like it, but because we were Counter-Strike players, and after it got released to mobile, a lot of people played that game. And there is a regulatory problem, and then it got removed, and then later it got rebranded to BGMI. And now, do you think, Sean, every video game should evolve? And did BGMI is appealing for the seasoned players as well as the new players? So this is my question to you. Is it appealing for the new players alone, or is it still appealing for the old and seasoned players?
I'll just maybe paraphrase. So you're saying basically, is the game good enough for older
Yes.
players? Yeah, I think numbers show it. Is it appealing for new players or older players as well? I mean, it's a perspective question. You can give your answer. Yes, of course, you make money.
You're asking for BGMI.
Yes.
Yeah, my answer, I have a bias. I have a very strong bias. My answer is yes. It's both appealing for both new users and existing users or more experienced users. But I would say, in general, the games especially live service games become more difficult for new users to come and enjoy compared to when they were initially launched. That's a general case. But then as a developer or as a publisher, you should make the game accessible by having different sort of interface, game modes, different game modes, and etc. But I believe BGMI is a great game for for new users and returning users. Yeah.
So if you look at the trends globally, there is a concept of mobile super game that have come in. Whether it is Honor of Kings, PUBG Mobile, they have been at the top of consumer spending and engagement for the last 6-7 years, have not changed. Clash of Clans. So yes, most of the top games are retaining all kinds of users, older, newer, etc.
Yeah, so as Anuj pointed out, well-established live service game generally tracking very hard what is the retention rate for new users, return users, every different sort of categories of users. From that point of view, yeah, good games on the top chart. They are appealing, many different, wide range of users.
I think we'll end it. I'm sorry, we can take offline questions. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for being a wonderful panel.